Hello and welcome back to the Linux Panic YouTube channel. In this video we're going to be looking at how to install Arch Linux in 2024. But before we continue, I would like to thank my channel members. These are Mislav and Von Garden. They help support me, and if you support me you get a little badge next to your name that says I'm better than you because I help him. And you also get early access to videos like this one right here. Anyway, let's get into the video. Now, this is the 2024 version of Arch Linux. It looks like the normal Arch Linux installer. You've got the choice of installing it with or without speech running through it. We can boot to an existing, which isn't one, or run a test and get some information. But in this case, we just want to boot up. This is running on a QEMU hypervisor, so it will be getting it. This is as close to bare metal as I can get it, because it's running through a hypervisor. So this is what the operating system looks like upon logging in, because it's recognizing that we're in the Arch ISO installer. It logs us in automatically. We can check to see if networking is working by pinging one dot. In this case, it is. We have an average time of 18 milliseconds. That's no bothers. So first things first, we have to check for our disk arrays. In this case here, we have VDA, which is the disk we're going to be installing to. We can ignore SR0 and loop, as that is just the ISO. So first things first, we need to do CF disk. This will then load this here, which will give us the choice on how we want to label our disks for the file system type. So in this case, because our disk is less than 2 terabytes in size, we will be using DOS. We want to separate this into 2 partitions. First one being 128 megabytes. That is for the boot partition, primary, and we will hit B over it. In doing so, there is now an asterisk underneath boot for VDA1, and we're just going to hit enter all the way through for this, and this will then give us VDA2, which is an equivalent of 49.9 gigabytes and 128 megabytes. That's what we want. In this scenario, you can have more or less depending on your operating system, but because this is what I have, this is what we'll go with. So once we've done that, we need to hit right on the arrow keys until we get to write. Did not write because we didn't type it. It's important that you actually type yes or no, because if you don't, it's not actually going to do anything. Now that we've done that, we can hit quit, clear, LSBLK, and now we have VDA1 and VDA2 of the appropriate sizes of what we've just changed it to. So now that we have done that, we can just check one more time, and we can check the block ID. As we can see, one of them is, as we can see the blocks there, we can ignore the rest of that. So now that we've done that, we need to put file systems on them. So to do that, we list the blocks, and we do make file system ext4 /dev /VDA1 and VDA2. So VDA1 and VDA2 now have a file system as well as a partition table. It's got the DOS partition table with the ext4 file system on them. So now that we've done that, we need to mount the drives. So the first thing we need to do is mount /dev /VDA2 to /MNT, and we need to make a boot directory, which for VDA1. So in this case, mount directory /MNT. We'll make directory /MNT /boot, and then we need to do mount /dev /VDA1 to /MNT /boot. Now that we've done that, if we do LSBLK, we can see VDA1 is mounted to boot, because that is our boot partition, that's what we want. And VDA2 is not mounted to anything other than... Sorry about that. And VDA2 is mounted to boot as we wanted. So we can now continue onwards. So, LSBLK. Yes, that's what I meant. It's nice to see that ZSH is installed as standard. So what I want to do now is change the pacman instructions. So if I remember correctly, it's going to be in etc and then cd pacman, and there we go. So now we could change this to parallel downloads because I don't have exactly the greatest of speeds. You would go into pacman.conf. You can actually find that. I'd imagine you'd be able to find that here. You would want your pacman.conf, which should be here, but I can't find it for the time being, but so it's fine. But you would want to change your pacman.conf to then increase parallel downloads. But because I don't have the option for parallel downloads because of the slower speed, so you'd want to change that if you had better speed than I do right now. So hit clear. Now we want to actually download and install the operating system. So VDA 1, VDA 2, mount boot, mount. What we now want to do is do the magic. So pacstrap /mnt, pacstrap /mnt, and we want to do base devel, Linux firmware, and then vim. So what we're now doing is we are telling it to download all of the packages that are required for the running of the actual operating system. Now, as we can see here, this gives us a rather large, gives us 149 packages to download. And now, if you've ever watched any of my Linux from scratch videos, you will know that some of these sound quite familiar, such as bin utils, bison, CA certificates, Linux firmware, vim, zlibs, zstandard, util Linux, systemd. In this case, this is using systemd 255. My Linux from scratch system uses systemd 254. Pro CPS NG, I've used that as well. So a lot of this software does carry over between the two, well, between a lot of the Linux operating systems. As we can see, this is using the Linux kernel 6.6.8. This is also downloading pacman as well, which is the Arch Linux equivalent of the package installer. So whilst we wait for this to download, we are just going to sit and wait. There's nothing really much we can do, so we're going to hurry up and wait. Okay, so now that we have finished with the downloading, what we now want to do is generate ourselves a file system tab. As we can see, it took a total of 3 minutes 25 seconds, 3 minutes 25.257 seconds, which is not bad considering the amount of packages I had to download. So first things first, we want to gen a file system tab using the U, so it creates it using the UUID /mnt, there we go, onto /mnt/etc/fstab, and if nothing comes up here, we're good. There's no errors, and that's what we want. So now is the part where we go into chillroot. So this is us messing around with the operating system in its final form before we then boot up. So to do that, we do arch-chroot or chillroot /mnt/bin bash. As we can see, the root is now no longer red, which means we are actually on the operating system we're going to be playing around with, and the operating system that we're going to boot. So first things first, pacman-s network manager, because this currently has no there we go. The new operating system does not currently have a network functionality built into it, so we need to install it along with grub to make sure it actually gets working. So we hit yes. What this will then do is to download the 21 requisite packages needed. There's PCRE, and there's, yes, I was trying to read that, thank you. But what this then does is gives us networking functionality, which we would then enable with systemctl, systemctl enable network manager. As you may have seen here, as you may have seen prior, actually we can do this. This network manager, that's the name of the file we want to download, but the actual service and program that runs is capital N, capital M. If you do not do that, Network Manager is not going to run and you are not going to have networking capabilities. Once we've now done this, we want to install grub to the disk that we're going to be running. So, in this case, if we just do a quick lsblk, we have VDA, and that's all we need to do. That's all we need to worry about. So, grub install /dev/VDA. There we go, /dev/VDA. And that's it. What it'll then do is it'll then install grub and give us the ability to boot, which we've just done. We now need to make a grub config for the operating system to actually function. So to do that, we do grub -make config mkconfig -o/boot/grub/grub.cfg. It would help if I put the space in the correct place. There we go. So now we've got a grub config, and what this one does is it then actually creates a grub config menu that shows the other operating systems we can then boot from, which is good, but in this case there's only one, and it's this, so we don't need to worry. Now that we've done that, we need to actually put a password on the operating system, so passwd. So just passwd. In this case, it's just going to be root. I don't need to worry about any of that. I'm just giving it root, so it's fine, because this operating system is going to be squashed after we're done. But now that we have given ourselves a password, a grub config, we now need to generate our locales. So this will then actually allow us to use the operating system. So in my case, we do vim/etc/locale.gen. And what we have here is a list of all of the locales that are available. And this does list every single locale in UTF-8 format. Hello, Catamus. Thank you for jumping on the keyboard. I just had a cat come join me, and the cat's now over there. Yes, hello. So, in my case, because I'm in Australia, what we need to do is go down to EN and then AU in the UTF-8 format. So insert, back, Control-C, right, quit. That's all I want. That's all I want. So now that we've done that, we do locale gen, and that generates the UTF-8 format, which is exactly what I want. Now we need to generate languages. So in this case, it's just vim/etc/locale.conf. And all I want to do here is hit insert and now do lang equals en_AU dot UTF-8, and that's my languages and locale done. So Control-C, and then we want to do right quit. That then generates the locale. So when that's our languages done, and that's our keyboard done. We can now move on to giving us the system a host name. So in this case, I'm just going to do /vim/etc/hostname, host name, and then arch. Yes, I know the output's not terminal. Okay. We'll do it the proper way. So, in this case, arch, right quit. Clear. So if I now do host name, it's not found. That's fine, because we're not actually booted up yet. Some of these won't actually work until process ID number 1 is launched. In this case, system D. So some of this doesn't work, and that's expected. What we now need to do is generate ourselves a local time. So what we need to do is link sf user share. And finding your time zone is a bit interesting, because I don't know what mine is. I know I'm in Australia. So that'll then sort itself out via networking time as well as based off the BIOS, but that's fine for me. For what you would do is ln-sf user share zone and then your country. So for me it's Australia. As we can see, it's not actually loading anything when I hit tab, but that would generate it. You do your country and then your area. So for example, if you were living in America, it would be America/new_York and then /etc/local time. And that would tell your system, hey, that's what the local time is. But because I don't have that, we won't be doing that for this time round. So now that we've done that, we want to exit. You mount recursively MNT. Now we've unmounted that, and if we just do LSB OK, that's not mounted anymore. And now reboot the system. What it's going to go through, it's going to go through the boot process. We can now look at the boot, number 1. And here is Arch Linux. This is now going to load up, so if we do want to do root and then root. So pacman -s neofetch. Yes. And then neofetch. Here is a fully installed Arch Linux system in 2024 as fast as reasonably possible. We've gone from having nothing to a fully installed and functional operating system in about 16-17 minutes, which is not bad at all. So anyway, I would like to thank you all very much for watching. If you liked the video, hit the like button. If you disliked it, hit the dislike button. They both seem to work. I hope everyone has a wonderful 2024, and remember, when you use Linux, don't panic. I have been Nick, you have been amazing, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.